Many people say that Linux is complicated, that you need to know how to type commands to use it. Well, I'm going to prove them wrong. Linux Mint does absolutely everything Windows does, and in many cases, even better. This is about Linux Mint, one of the most user-friendly Linux distributions for those coming from the Windows world. It was designed with exactly that in mind, to be familiar, comfortable, and easy to use for anyone who has ever used a Windows computer. You start your computer and it feels just like home. Let's explore together what Linux Mint does and why it feels so much like what you already know. The first time you start Linux Mint with the Cinnamon interface, which is the default and most popular interface, the first thing that catches your eye is that it looks like a desktop. It's a clean desktop with a taskbar at the bottom, a menu button in the bottom left, and a clock on the right. Just like Windows. Let's see what happens when you right-click on the desktop, because from there you control more than you'd think. The first option is Create New Folder. You create a new folder directly on the desktop. You give it a name and it appears instantly. Next is Create New Document. You create an empty text file directly from the desktop, the equivalent of New Text Document in Windows. You give it a name, open it, and start typing. The third option is Create a New Launcher here. And this is one of the most useful features that many people don't know about. A launcher is essentially a shortcut to any program on your system. It becomes truly valuable when you use app image applications, programs that don't install in the classic sense into the system, but instead run directly from a single file. A good example is Kdenlive. You download it as an app image, there's no installation process, and without a launcher, you'd have to search for it through your files every time. With Create New Launcher, you solve this elegantly. In the name field, you enter the application name. In the command field, you browse the system for where the app image file is located and select the path to it. And in the icon field, you can add a representative image for the program. From that point, it appears on the desktop like any other normal application, with a name and icon, and you double-click it to launch it. Next is Add Desklets, small visual applications that sit directly on the desktop background. An analog clock, a calendar, a weather forecast, a resource monitor that shows in real time how much CPU and RAM the system is consuming. You choose what you want from the available list, click Add, and it appears directly on the screen. You move it wherever you like, resize it, or remove it at any time. Change desktop background. This is where you change the wallpaper. A gallery appears with images already installed on the system, or you can browse to any photo on your computer. You select it and your desktop looks exactly the way you want. Display settings, screen settings, accessible directly from the desktop without going into the control panel. From here, you change the monitor resolution and adjust the refresh rate. Open in Terminal opens the terminal directly in the desktop context. For those who want to explore the command line, it's a quick and convenient shortcut. Open as root opens the file manager with administrator privileges for situations where you need to access or modify protected system files. Use it carefully, but it's useful when you need it. And the last option in the menu is Customize. From here, you have full control over how your desktop looks. You can change the icon size, auto-arrange them on the screen, and choose whether they are arranged vertically or horizontally. For sorting, you have several criteria available: by name, by size, by date, or by type. And you can also enable the reverse sorting option to invert the order. You can also adjust the spacing between icons both horizontally and vertically through the grid spacing option, so the desktop looks exactly the way you like, more spacious or more compact. Also in this section, you'll find desktop settings, where you can decide which system icons appear on the desktop. You can individually enable or disable computer, home, the personal folder, trash, the recycle bin, mounted drives, meaning connected storage devices, external hard drives, USB drives, and network. If you want a completely clean desktop, disable them all. If you want quick access to them without opening Nemo, leave them visible. The choice is entirely yours. And if you want to put files directly on the desktop, simply drag them from Nemo and they stay there. Shortcuts to installed programs are added from the menu by right-clicking on the program and selecting Add to Desktop. Everything is designed to feel just as natural as in Windows, but with more options at your disposal. The taskbar in Linux Mint is probably one of the most well-designed across all Linux distributions. In the bottom left, you have the menu button, the equivalent of the start button in Windows. Right next to the menu button on the taskbar, you already have 3 fixed shortcuts: Files, which opens the Nemo file manager, Firefox, and Terminal. But you're not limited to these. You can add any program you want to the taskbar. You go into Menu, find the desired application, right-click on it and choose Add to Panel. From that moment, it appears in the taskbar and you can launch it with a single click without having to open the menu every time. If you right-click on the taskbar, on an empty area of the bar, a menu appears with several useful options. The first is Panel Settings, where you can configure the bar in detail. You can set it to auto-hide when you're not using it, gaining screen space, or keep it always visible. From here, you also change the size of the bar, its height, and other visual aspects related to appearance and position. From the same right-click menu, you can add applets, small functional components that integrate directly into the taskbar. A CPU monitor, a weather indicator, a stopwatch, an advanced volume controller. There are dozens of available applets that you can install and add in just a few seconds. From there, you can also move the bar to another edge of the screen, top, bottom, left or right, delete it if you want a more minimalist experience, or add a new panel, a second taskbar, on another edge of the screen. Especially useful if you have a large monitor and want to distribute elements differently. In the troubleshoot section, you'll find a few quick fix options. You can restart Cinnamon without rebooting the computer, useful if the interface is behaving strangely. You can open Looking Glass, an advanced diagnostics and debugging tool for the Cinnamon interface, useful for those who want to investigate more deeply what's happening with the system. And you can always restore all settings to default if you've changed something and want to start fresh with a clean configuration. From the right-click on the taskbar, you can also go directly into System Settings, the main settings panel of the system, the equivalent of Control Panel in Windows, from where you control absolutely everything: network, sound, users, visual appearance, keyboard, mouse, and much more. In the bottom right, you have the notification area, which contains exactly what you'd expect. The calendar is there in the right corner. You click on the clock and a nice calendar appears with months and days, and you can navigate forward and backward. If you've synced your Google Calendar account or another calendar, your events can appear directly there. You click on the speaker icon and a slider appears that lets you adjust the volume instantly, but it doesn't stop there. You can also see which application is currently playing audio, control the active media player directly from that small window without opening the music application. If you have multiple audio devices connected, headphones, speakers, you can switch between them quickly from the same place. And if you need more advanced settings, from that same menu you have direct access to sound settings, the complete sound configuration. You click on the network indicator and it shows you all the available Wi-Fi networks within range. You connect the same way you would in Windows, select the network, enter the password, and you're done. If you're using an Ethernet cable, the connection is made automatically without doing anything. Updates. I'll talk about these in more detail shortly, but know that the update icon is constantly visible in the taskbar and notifies you when updates are available. One of the things that scares people when they think about Linux is the idea that updates are complicated. In Linux Mint, updates work through a dedicated graphical application called Update Manager. It looks exactly as you'd expect, a window with a list of available updates, each with a name and a short description. You click Install Updates, enter your user password, and the process starts. The progress bar advances, the updates install, and at the end, a restart may be required. Just like Windows Update, but without surprises and without forced restarts in the middle of the night. A huge advantage of Linux Mint over Windows is that updates don't impose themselves. You won't wake up to find your system restarting on its own while you're working. You decide when to install updates. The menu in Linux Mint Cinnamon is, in my opinion, superior to the Start menu in Windows. Why? Because it's organized by categories. You click the menu button in the bottom left, and on the left you have the categories: Internet, Sound and Video, Graphics, Office, Games, Preferences, and others. You click on a category, and on the right, all the programs in that category appear. No searching, no navigating through endless lists. And if you don't know exactly which category a program is in, there's a search bar at the bottom of the menu. You start typing the program's name and it appears instantly, just like in Windows when you press the Start key and type directly. If you want to uninstall a program, you don't need to open Software Manager, you don't need to search through settings, you simply open the menu, find the application, right-click on it, and choose Uninstall. The program uninstalls immediately, directly from the menu, in a matter of seconds. It simply can't get any easier than that. Linux Mint also has a task manager. It's called System Monitor, and you can find it in the menu under the Administration category. It looks almost identical to the Task Manager in Windows and is divided into several tabs, each with specific information. The first tab is Processes, a list of all the processes currently running on the system. For each process, you can see the name, real-time CPU usage, RAM consumed, the process ID, and the user who started it. If a program freezes your computer or consumes resources excessively, you quickly identify it in the list, click on it, and press the End Process button, the equivalent of End Task in Windows. The program is forcibly closed and the computer returns to normal. The second tab is Resources, and this one is extremely useful for understanding what's happening with your system in real time. Here you'll find live graphs showing CPU usage. If you have multiple cores, you can see each one individually. RAM usage, swap usage, and network traffic, both download and upload. The third tab is File Systems, an overview of the partitions and storage drives connected to the system. You can see how much space each partition has, how much is used, and how much free space remains. Useful when you want to quickly check whether your disk is full without opening Nemo. System Monitor is a simple, visual, and efficient tool. All Windows users know the Control+Alt+Delete combination, that life-saving shortcut for when the system freezes, when a program stops responding, or when you want to quickly reach the Task Manager. In Linux Mint Cinnamon, there is a direct equivalent for situations where the graphical interface freezes, Control+Alt+Backspace. This key combination restarts the Cinnamon interface, but it's important to know exactly what happens at that moment. All open applications close, everything you had in progress and hadn't saved is lost, and the system takes you back to the login screen. You'll need to authenticate again with your password, after which Cinnamon starts fresh, as in a new session. When can this happen? Rarely, but it's possible, especially if you're running very demanding applications, if you have a problematic graphics driver, or if the system is overloaded. Instead of holding down the power button and forcing a full restart, you press Control+Alt+Backspace, log back in, and within seconds you're back at a clean, functional desktop. This is a feature that many Windows users don't have, but once you discover it in Linux Mint, you can't live without it. They're called hot corners, the active corners of your screen. Essentially, you can configure each of the 4 corners of your monitor to do something automatically when you move your mouse there. Search for hot corners and you'll see the 4 corners of the screen represented visually. You click on any of them and activate it with a simple toggle. Once a corner is activated, you have several options to choose from for what happens when the mouse reaches that spot. Show all workspaces displays all available virtual workspaces, useful if you work with multiple desktops simultaneously. Show all windows shows you all currently open windows, so you can see everything you have open at a glance and quickly jump to what you need. Show the desktop minimizes all open windows and displays your empty desktop, just like the Show Desktop button in the Windows taskbar. And then there's the most flexible option of all, Run a Command. This essentially allows you to configure any corner to open any application you want. How do you do it? Go to the menu, find the application you want to associate with that corner, right-click on it and choose Properties. In the window that opens, you'll find the Command field, which contains the full launch command for that application. You copy that command and paste it into the Run a Command field in the Hot Corners settings. From that point on, whenever you move your mouse to that corner of the screen, that application launches automatically. 4 corners, 4 quick actions, 0 extra clicks. Once you get used to hot corners, your productivity visibly increases and navigating between applications becomes much more fluid and natural. Installing software in Linux Mint is done through Software Manager, an application that looks like an app store, similar to the Microsoft Store, but far richer, faster, and more reliable. Search for whatever program you need, a browser, text editor, video player, graphics program, and click Install. No visiting sketchy websites, no hunting the internet for dubious executables, no risk of downloading viruses along with the program you wanted. Everything comes from verified and trusted sources. One very important thing to mention, Linux Mint comes with built-in support for Flatpak, one of the most modern methods of distributing applications on Linux. Flatpak applications have the advantage of always being up to date with the latest available version, are isolated from the rest of the system for enhanced security. And there's one more enormous advantage. Installation is lightning fast. There's none of that lengthy next, accept, finish process from Windows. You click, enter your password, and within moments the program is installed and ready to use. Let's talk about a topic that concerns many people, security. In Windows, you're used to having an antivirus, Windows Defender or another running constantly in the background and consuming resources. In Linux Mint, the situation is different. You don't need an antivirus in the classical sense. The architecture of the Linux system makes Windows viruses completely harmless. They simply cannot run. And viruses written for Linux are extremely rare in practice, especially for everyday users. This doesn't mean you're completely unprotected. Linux Mint comes with UFW, Uncomplicated Firewall. It's a firewall built into the system that can be enabled and configured graphically. You open it, enable the firewall with a button, and that's it. Your system is protected against unwanted connections from the outside. The security model of Linux is different from Windows. The regular user does not have administrator rights by default. Any action that requires special permissions, installing a program, modifying system settings, requires entering your password. This means that if you accidentally click on something dangerous, it cannot make significant changes without your explicit consent. We arrive at the File Manager, the equivalent of File Explorer in Windows. In Linux Mint, it's called Nemo. It looks familiar. You have the left panel with frequent locations, home, desktop, documents, pictures, music, downloads, trash. And on the right, the contents of the selected folder. Navigation is identical. Double-click to open, right-click for options, address bar at the top. One of the first things you'll notice is that you can change the way files are displayed. Icon View displays files as large icons, visual and pleasant, ideal when browsing through photos or documents. List View displays files as a detailed list, with the name, size, type, and date modified. Compact View, an intermediate option with smaller icons and more files visible simultaneously on screen. You switch between these modes with a single click from the toolbar, depending on what suits you at that moment. You can sort files by several criteria, by name, by size, by type, by date modified, and others. And just like in Windows, you can reverse the sort order with a single click, from A to Z or Z to A, from oldest to newest or the other way around. A very useful feature is search. You click the search icon in the toolbar or press Ctrl+F and you can instantly search for any file or document by name. Nemo searches quickly in the current folder or throughout the entire system, depending on how you configure the search. Nemo can also display hidden files. You display them simply by right-clicking in an empty space and selecting Show Hidden Files, or with the shortcut Ctrl+H, just as easily you hide them again when you no longer need them. You can open multiple tabs in the same window, exactly like in a browser, useful when moving files from one folder to another without opening two separate windows. You have the ability to see the full folder path in the address bar, which makes navigation much clearer. And if you want to quickly copy the path of a folder to use elsewhere, you right-click and the option is immediately available. And there we have it. We've gone through together the main features of Linux Mint that make it so similar to Windows. The customizable desktop, the taskbar with calendar, internet, Bluetooth and updates, the transparent update manager, the system monitor, the Ctrl+Alt+Backspace shortcut for emergencies, hot corners for productivity, the fast software manager, the well-organized menu, security without antivirus but with a firewall, and the Nemo file manager. Linux Mint is an operating system for anyone who wants a computer that works well, fast, without ads, without forced updates, and without licensing costs. If you have an older computer that no longer supports Windows 11, Linux Mint may be exactly the solution you need. It runs excellently even on older hardware from 8 to 10 years ago and will turn it into a fast and enjoyable computer to use. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content about Linux Mint.